Hi.
Hello. Well, that was interesting.
Isn't it always?
Oh my. Power out, Zoom link doesn't work.
Oh, man. Yep.
Let's just add to the
Power came
fun.
back. Power came back about an hour ago.
Wow. Toss in a little global pandemic, we're all good to go.
Keeping us on our toes.
Oh my.
I didn't hear from Steve, but I do expect Dan to be here.
Yeah, he can't get in. He's texting me, so I'm going to email him the link.
Okay.
So I couldn't get in, and when I left, it kept saying it was another meeting. When I left and tried again, it went right in. So maybe he should try.
I had to leave and come back in too. So.
I'm texting him that.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, good. I was just texting you, Dan.
No, thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, I
Is it
tried
me?
like six times to get in, so it's not just you.
Thank you. I
Hey,
feel like
Jackie.
every time it's different. I don't know why. It's like crazy.
Yeah, it feels different every time. Does anybody know if has anybody heard from Steve?
Pam tried emailing him, no answer. She called him and it went right to voicemail. And that was the last I heard from her.
Maybe we should get started then.
Probably.
So let's call the meeting to order at 6:05. And we need to let everybody know that the meeting is being recorded.
Yes.
And then, Jen, will you start us off with our?
I will. So we are going to reorganize the committee, and the first position we need is chair. So do I have any volunteers or nominations for chair of the Shutesbury School Committee? Wow, lots of hands popping up.
I'll nominate Jen Malcolm Brown.
Not something I can do right now as a parent of 2 young children. Thank you, though.
Oh. Katie?
So I'm also in a position that I have some really complicating factors going on in my life right now, and I am very concerned about my ability to be committed.
Dan?
How about Dan? I'll nominate Dan.
Nomination.
Lauren?
I was hoping to step down at this time because I also have, I know we all have a lot going on right now, but my personal and professional life are both having a significant shift. So I was hoping to take a step back.
Well, I mean, I'm willing to do it, but I would love for maybe someone to think about stepping up at some point, and I'm more than willing to switch over to whoever wants to do it at any time.
That's fair.
I mean, I will say I'm also busy with a collaborative. It's also co-spearheading the search for the new executive director. So it's kind of a crazy time for me, but
I'll help you in any way I can, Dan, if you do it.
well, I could never do it without you and Pam.
I volunteer me and Pam to help.
Okay, thank you. Then
Dan,
all right.
do you feel better if there was like a date that it was back on the agenda ahead of time so that it didn't just kind of continue if you didn't want it to?
You know what? It's whatever. I think it should be something where someone really wants to do it. So I will do it until someone feels they're able and want to do it. So we don't need to put a date on there, but I would love it if maybe somehow, people's lives coalesce amidst
That would be great.
pandemic and hurricanes and
No power.
right.
All right, so
I nominate Dan.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
all
Now-
right, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Dan.
All right, so technically through Zoom meetings, we should be doing roll call votes, but why don't we just do it normal for this? I mean, as long as it's unanimous, I can't imagine there being a problem. When we get to other votes that might be maybe a little bit different, we can do the roll. Is everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Sounds good.
All right. Next position is secretary, acts as the chair when the chair is not here. Anyone interested in that?
I can do
All right.
that. That's fine.
All right. Lauren has volunteered.
I'll nominate Lauren.
Okay,
A second.
perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Union 28 representatives, so the chair is one automatically, and we need, I think, 2 others.
Yes.
I'll do that.
Okay, Jen?
I thought we only need one other. We need 2?
2 other. Mm-hmm.
Say that again.
This would be the representative to Union 28.
Oh, I can still do that.
Oh, great.
Okay, so Jen and Lauren. Anyone else interested? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Budget and Personnel Subcommittee.
And we need
Who's-
2, is that correct, Dan?
1 member from each town.
Oh, 1, okay.
The member must also serve on Union 28 Joint Supervisory Committee. So either Jen, Lauren, or I.
I can do it
Jen?
again.
Lauren, okay.
Yeah.
Representative to the middle school, or all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I figured as much. Representative to the middle school.
The ARPS, all of it, right?
What's that? So
2
the-
Amherst.
Right, right, the Amherst Middle School, High School, I'm sorry. Keep
I'm
some-
guessing that Steve wants to hold on to that. If he is not willing to, I would be, but I don't want to.
So I say, why don't we just we'll elect Steve to do it. He's not here. And then if at our next meeting, Steve does not seem interested, we can reorganize again.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we're all good with that, do we
Yeah.
have a motion?
Yes. So
Okay,
moved.
Katie, motion?
No,
Yes.
second.
I can second.
All right, Jen second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. The Shutesbury Policy Subcommittee,
I like that one.
I can still go.
okay?
Very efficient.
All right,
We
so
are
Katie,
efficient.
all right. So that was Katie and Jen?
Yep.
All right. Motion
I'll-
from Lauren? Okay, a second?
I can
I'll second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Capital Planning, Liaison to the School. That was also Steve. Do we
Can
want
we
to
do
leave?
the same as Amherst? Like, see if he'll take it, and if he won't, then we'll refigure it.
Yep, I think that's great. It's what happens when you don't come to a meeting. Motion.
So moved.
All right. And Jen, you want a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I would love to continue at CES, especially since I'm spearheading the search for the next executive director.
I will move for you to do that.
I'll
Okay.
second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Moving down the agenda, public hearings. I'll just make one comment. Thank you all for all of your hard work. A lot of work. Thank you for the inclusiveness to the community, all stakeholders, and constant communication with all state and federal agencies. All right.
Should the letter that we received from April Cannon be considered public hearing? Or is that separate? It
Well,
felt like that was her intention. That's why I'm not sure.
right. Well, we all got the letter, but I don't know, does anyone want to read it, or is it? We can make a note that there was a letter from one of the teachers as far as public record, and the letter can be put in as part of our meeting documents.
Sounds good.
Okay, why don't we do that? Just because. All right, warrants and gifts? None? All right. Approval of the minutes from June 18th. Motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes from June 18th.
I'll second.
All right, any edits? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Hey, Dan,
Yes.
I have some warrants if you would like me to read them into the
Oh.
minute.
Okay, that'd be great.
Sorry, I wasn't quite fast enough with my mute, so. I've got several warrants, but warrant 3025 dated 18th of June for $38,671.78. Number 3026 dated 6/30 of $51,659.56. 3027 dated 6/30 also for $16,498.95. Those are FY20. I have two FY21 ones, one dated 7/2 for $4,025.13. 3002 dated 8/4 for $26,680.76. And then I have 5 payroll warrants. Number 326 for $70,874.20. Number 327, $70,874.20. 301, this is dated 7/13, 64,184.51. 302 dated 7/27 for $64,425.79. And 303 dated this week for $69,238.40. So thank you, Dan.
Okay, Trevor, are you on? Is Trevor taking notes?
Yes, I am. I'm here, and Steve forwarded me all of those warrants ahead of time, and they all check out. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So could we amend the motion to include all the warrants that were just submitted? Lauren,
Yes, so amended.
and will you be willing to amend your second, Jen?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
All right, thank you, Trevor, for getting all of those. I was gonna ask him to submit it to you, but it's better that you already have it.
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
All right, unfinished business and updates. Anything, Jennifer?
I have none. I mean, we have a lot of unfinished business, but I think we'll hit it under fall reopening plan.
Okay. So that brings us to the fall reopening plan under new business and discussion items. You want to lead the way on that?
Will do. So I'll give you a little overview. You have all received the draft reopening plan. We have to choose a plan to, and I'm quoting the commissioner, start the school year. As we know, the trajectory of the virus is unpredictable. And so whatever we choose may be altered as the trajectory of the virus changes. The commissioner has asked us to submit 3 learning models, and that was in person with new safety requirements, hybrid learning models, and remote learning models. I do want to point out that whenever we return in building, that we need to, I would recommend we need to follow the 6-foot distancing. I know the commissioner has said 3 to 6 feet, minimum of 3, aspire to 6, but I feel safest at 6, and so I would recommend that. In the plan, we have described all of the models. We have 2 hybrid models that we developed. One is option 1, phased in approach. And when we sent the draft model, we were providing a week and a half of training for staff. Since then, the commissioner has reduced the student calendar from 180 days to 170. And so we would be providing 12 days of training, the 10 days from the commissioner, and then our 2 union 28 days. And then phase 1 would include all students remotely. And then we would bring in preschool, kindergarten, and grade 1, and then we'd phase in grades 2 and 3, and 4, 5, and 6 over the course of a span of time. Please note that those times will be adjusted, and we'll talk about our calendar in a wee bit. And then the second option would be alternating cohorts, same training time for teachers, same start date, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We would start that plan also remotely, and then it would also be a phase-in, but we would alternate cohorts from Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday, with Wednesday being fully remote. That is also traditionally our early release day. And we chose that day to do deep cleaning between cohorts. And then there is an entirely remote option in the plan. And this is for parents who choose not to send children to school. They have the option of fully remote. We may need to, and I'm quoting the commissioner, pivot to a fully remote model when and if the virus spikes. And we did need to provide that option as part of the 1, 2, 3 approaches from the commissioner. I am concerned about returning staff and students to school. It remains a concern as we watch the trend of the virus elsewhere. And It remains a concern when the colleges in our area return. And so my recommendation, let me backpedal a little bit. The American Federation for Teachers and the Mass Teachers Association as statewide organizations have recommended remote learning. We have had 2 meetings in Union 28. We've had Leverett and Irving. Both of those districts have chosen to start remote, Leverett for 6 weeks, Irving for 4, and then choose a phase-in model. I am most comfortable recommending a remote start. And if I had to choose a model, I think the alternating cohorts feels like where there's less exposure for our staff and students because they would remain in a small group. And so that's sort of the overview of the models. The plan is due, it was due August 10th. I texted the commissioner today. He graciously gave me 2 extra days to get my plan in because we are meeting tomorrow in New Salem, Wendell, and I wasn't sure we would have the time to do it. But it will be due next week. And there's so many things that are up in the air when we look at our communities and the virus. And you have heard my recommendations, and now I feel like it should be open for discussion with the school committee. And I'm more than happy, and so is Jackie, to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Just a comment that I really appreciate the thought put into this and attention to the safety of everyone involved in the school community, which impacts the community as a whole. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment, Dan?
Who's saying that?
Lauren.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So we'll go to the school committee members, and then Renee will bring you in just a moment. Okay. So go ahead, Lauren.
My first comment is that I think it's notable that the Shutesbury Teachers Union would opt for remote learning, and yet expressed in that their appreciation for the district leadership team and all of the work that they did. I feel like it speaks well for the way that our Shutesbury teachers and staff work with the administration, that they are able to disagree, or no, I don't even know if disagree is the right word, but they are able to say what they feel, but still, it seems as though teachers feel heard, and I feel like that's really important. And then the second comment that I have to make, that one concern that I continue to have is that, considering all of the safety concerns, what school will look like when kids go back is not, I think we would all agree, the school that we know and love, and not how people typically teach and work together. And I think that one of the considerations that we need to have moving forward is when the balance is tilted to when it's really not worth it. That's all I have to say for now.
So I did read, Lauren, if you don't mind, and
Sure.
this is choosing no model, but it struck me when I read it that returning kids to school is a risk that we don't have to take. And for what it's worth, I think it's important to put that sentiment out there.
Okay.
I also would just like to speak about two things, or one thing in my mind very briefly. And well, first of all, I just want to publicly acknowledge the teachers at SES and the staff and the amazingness that they have and bring and are. I have 8 people right now taking a 3-day PD on Google Classroom. I mean, they're using their summers to prepare because they care so much. But I just want to say, and, you know, someone mentioned April Cannon's letter, and she echoes some things in there about thinking creatively, even within a remote model, but inviting some very small pods of kids together with their teacher to meet them in person, to talk about how to use their device, to set up some parameters around what's going to happen, to establish relationships. And some of those special things can happen within a remote model. It would just be something we'd have to work out. And I just want to just put that out there, that there are ways to safely be able to make personal connections with kids, to set us up in the right direction, even if it's remote. And that's all I really have to say.
So would the plan be to be completely remote for how many months? Was it 4 or 6? Or was that your, I'm looking for the recommendation. I'm just.
Yeah, so I haven't crafted one, but I can if you'd like me to, but I think other people might want to speak. I can just speak for the 2 meetings I've had. Leverett is going fully remote for 6 weeks, and Irving is going fully remote for 4 weeks. Having said that, I just need to put this out there because the commissioner said it, and so I want us to make the best informed decision. We did get a reminder from the commissioner that if we went remote or hybrid, that we would have an accountability audit, meaning DESE would come out and audit to make sure we are doing what we are supposed to. Of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, does DESE even know where Shutesbury or New Salem or Wendell is? That's a little aside, Trevor, you don't have to put that in the notes. And the commissioner did say to share with committees that he doesn't know this, but if we got more federal stimulus money, that it may or may not be tied to remote or in-person learning. So that's not my opinion. I just need to share that information so people make the best informed decision.
Renee, did you want to have a comment?
I just wanted to make sure that you guys did receive our letter. We formed a little subcommittee within the Seesaw Union based on the MTA's recommendation. And we really did put together a bunch of different ideas. And what we basically came down to was that we could put together a very strong and powerful remote learning foundation for all students. And that would include the paraeducators as well as the teachers. And, you know, when it comes down to it, especially when you look at what's happening in summer camps around the country, it's just not safe. And we're feeling that we can do something powerful in the time that we have until there's a vaccine to work fully remote without going back.
Well, I have a question about the vaccine because it does sound like that may not happen for a very long time. And even the latest is that the vaccine may only be 50% effective and that it will not apply to people with underlying conditions. So
Right.
that could be something in my lifetime we wouldn't see.
Correct. So I guess what we're saying right now is with the uptick in the Bay State Hospital, with their uptick in some of their staff having COVID, and also with the students coming in at UMass, quite a few students, that we are not feeling safe going back in any capacity into the school.
So is the position of the union that they want a vaccine first before entering back into the school?
Correct.
Dan?
Yep.
I guess I'm sitting here really trying to understand the 4 or 6 week, how that would help, because everything that Secretary Sutters has been putting out is saying that November is going to be really terrible for us. So I guess waiting 6 weeks and then trying to send kids back to me seems almost as probably more unsafe than sending them back now. So I guess I would like to suggest a longer time than that to remain virtual.
There were several reasons, Katie, why we did that, but one of the biggest things on our mind was the amount of college kids returning to our area during that time. And what we didn't want to happen is to be bringing kids back in an already kind of scary situation when you're little and you can't be near people and you can't play and you can't touch people and you got to wear a mask and your teacher's wearing a mask and your teacher's wearing another mask, and you have to stay within a certain area. And then on top of that, to then pull it a week later because the numbers in the area are rising. So now not only have we tried to establish a new normal with safety precautions, and now if numbers are rising in our community because of all of the people coming into it, now we're gonna go back into remote. And so in our mind, we were also just trying to eliminate that component, as well as keep an eye on what's going on right now in the Bay State with the uptick. And that was some of our major thinking there.
I definitely understand and appreciate all of that. I guess I am almost more comfortable looking in terms of the fall semester. Like it seems like it would be the safest to have the fall semester be remote.
And
then to see how things are.
Yep, Katie, that's been a conversation in another Union 28 school committee. We haven't had a meeting yet, but that has been a conversation as well, and looking at the whole first semester.
Okay, Jen, you had a question?
Well, I'm just wondering, I agree with what Katie is saying, and I'm also thinking about what you just said, Jen, related to the federal money. And if there's I don't want our decisions to be driven by money, but I also know that may be a reality at some point. And so if we say 6 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever, with the option to extend at any point based on data or safety feedback from staff and families, if that's an option. And if we said semester, is there anything that would prevent us from stepping back and making a different decision if needed? I just don't want to box this in.
So the only guidance not the only guidance, because I get, Friday night guidance a lot from the commissioner, but relative to choosing a model, what he has said is the school committee will need to choose a model to begin the school year. And I have texted him and asked him via chat in Zoom meetings, what does that mean moving forward? And I haven't gotten any answer that's clear. And so my assumption and interpretation is we pick a model to start, and then I think we can pivot to whatever model works for us where we are. But I will continue to try and get clarity, but all I've heard was choose a model to begin the school year.
Tan, can I ask one more question?
Sure.
I'm also, again, I just want to first and foremost say that I'm really in support of whatever is the safest option for the community. And also I'm curious if I know our leadership team and the thought that's put into equity, but I'm wondering if there's anything that you came into as part of any of the plans that you want us to hold related to equity, or where families might really struggle with any of these plans.
Yeah, so that's sort of what keeps me up every night, is thinking about, access and equity. And as you know, we are passionate about designing for learning and removing barriers and providing access for all of our students. And we have spoken with Dr. Marsh, who's our Director of Student Support Services. And I think you heard from Renee on behalf of the teachers about thinking creatively to provide some access. And we do have, thankfully, in our Union 28 schools, some wonderful outdoor spaces. And if we could provide some opportunities for some outdoor learning or some outdoor service provision, I think we would be willing to explore those options.
So my question in regards to that, in terms of equity, would the outdoor spaces would be available to all students? So would we provide bus services for the kids that couldn't be driven there?
Well, we would have to. If we picked a plan that involved students needing to come to the school, we wouldn't be able to deny transportation. I mean, luckily, with our survey, 90% of the people said that they wouldn't be using it. So that's super helpful. We could limit the amount of transportation we had for sure. But we would, if we were saying that we were going to any sort of a hybrid option, we would need to have that as an option.
Great. So I guess we need to vote on a plan tonight. Jennifer, go ahead, Renee.
I'm sorry, I have a couple more comments. So it's my understanding that at least 25% of the families, the parents, the guardians in Shutesbury will not be sending their kids to school, even if we were to open in a hybrid form. So one thing that our letter points out is I've actually heard that some of these parents would resort to homeschooling, which would also, since we were talking about money, would hurt us financially. So I think that's something to think about, that we would be offering a really strong remote program to these families so that they would not think about homeschooling. They would trust us and they would form these cohorts and educate their kids that way. The other thing I want you to think about is out of the largest cities in the US right now, and they had like 100 cities, 60 of them have chosen to work online. For how long, I don't know, but really the large cities are really struggling with this. And I think that we could follow their model and work remotely.
Okay.
I do also just want to make sure everyone does know we have ordered, purchased, and received devices for kindergarten through 6th grade, one-to-one devices that will be between home and school. So I just want to put that out there.
So I guess Jackie and Jennifer, have you kind of coalesced around something that you were recommending to the school committee?
Both Jen and I, and Jen, you can speak more if you need to. Both Jen and I very, very strongly recommend at least a significant portion in the fall to be remote. I'm even thinking up to 8 weeks to start, and then want to really examine what's going on, and if not, the whole first semester. That would be that's how I would sleep better at night, but I am not on the school committee. But that is certainly my feeling on this after speaking to a whole lot of people in the community, parents and staff.
Yeah, as I said, I've had a lot of sleepless nights because I'm not sure what the right decision is. We understand the shortfalls of remote learning for sure. Although I have to say, when I listen to other superintendents, our Union 28 folks have done amazing jobs. And that was doing it when we closed on a Friday and started remote learning soon thereafter. So and in meeting with teachers, and we have over the course of the summer, we've heard wonderful ideas about how we could make remote learning work and how we could make some accommodations for those high need students. But the more I read and listen to the news, the more I understand that we don't know a lot about the virus. And through February to now, we've heard wear a mask, don't wear a mask. We've heard children are super carriers. No, they're not carriers. Now they are carriers. And, you know, we're taking children and teachers and putting them in enclosed spaces in buildings that are well taken care of, but are certainly not, you know, an Apple or a Google who can spend lots of money on improving ventilation and buying barriers and plexiglass. And I go back to that statement about, is this a risk we have to take? And when I go to that question, my answer is, I'm not sure we have to take that risk. And I think we have talent and we have wonderful staff across the union and our leadership team that could support remote learning. And so I would have to say that I would recommend beginning the year with remote learning. And I don't know what will happen with the money. I don't know if the commissioner was just saying that or he's heard something from elsewhere, but I hear more and more towns and cities in Massachusetts and across New England, and my husband is a superintendent in Vermont, and they're beginning remotely. And if so many people are beginning remotely, then, you know, maybe they have to readjust their thinking around the stimulus. So my recommendation is a remote beginning.
Okay. Lauren, you had a question.
Well, I have more of a comment. I was thinking that if we were to establish a set amount of time that we start off remotely, I think it would be then smart to have an established set of criteria for going back that is agreed upon by as many stakeholders as possible. Because if we look at it now, you know, a lot of us may feel that remote is the best choice long term. But if we keep that option open and we still don't see what we feel we would need to be safe, then we would just continue with that option. So I'm just throwing that out there.
So I would agree with Jen Malcolm Brown that I don't know if we really should be thinking so much about the financial piece of this. I think we all are thinking of what we think is going to be best for kids. But I guess what I'm looking for from both Jennifer and Jackie, we need to vote on a plan. I would like to know maybe, and I think we also need to be flexible. So I think we need to come up with that plan so that we can vote on it. And if your thoughts are that you want to begin with a 6 or 8 or whatever it is that you're recommending, I think we need to hammer it down and then vote on it.
So I just have one more comment, and maybe I'm thinking too far ahead. If we are voting on what to begin and it is remote, I think it would be helpful for staff and for families to think about what are the options after that. If there are metrics that indicate it is safe to come back, would we want a phased in hybrid model, or would we want an alternating cohort model, which would keep our exposure smaller because it would be smaller groups of kids? So,
And both Jen and I, Leverett and Irving chose that phased in model. I'll speak for me and Jen can speak for herself, but I like the alternating cohort model better because it means the teachers would have less students in front of them and throughout the building, and they would be in specific pods with a day of time and deep cleaning in between. And then the teacher would also have face-to-face with all of the kids throughout the week, which I think would be important. But I just want to put an asterisk. We can amend these plans because you have the right to do that as the school committee. I would just say that I would put an asterisk, and I would only want to do that if the criteria showed that it was safe to do so. And I would go for 8 weeks personally, but
yeah. So I'm going to say ditto to Jackie. I think 8 weeks gives us some time to look at what's happening in our community as all of the colleges come back. And I think moving, when it's safe, towards an alternating cohort model feels safest for us. And as soon as we decide on a model, I do want to revisit sort of the timeline and calendar for tonight.
All right, so the outline of your plan would be a remote learning completely for 8 weeks, and then phased in hybrid model, alternating cohorts.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else to add to that before we begin a discussion? Okay. School committee members, how do you feel about that? Lauren?
I'm just thinking that, I mean, I don't know if this is just a matter of how you look at it, but I would want to see the 8 weeks that after that period of 8 weeks, that's our revisiting time, not that's when we switch to whatever that we plan to then go to our phased model, that we, after the 8 weeks or around 8 weeks, we revisit and see what we're doing next. And then if criteria were met, then we could choose our phase, what the phase-in model should look like whenever we feel that it's safe enough to do so. That's what I'm thinking.
So can I push back a little on that? So my thought would be, I do agree that this needs to be monitored continuously. But I think setting a goal of the 8 weeks might be good at that point to be thinking about the hybrid model and monitoring and assessing and evaluating along the way. And if we're at 6 weeks or 7 weeks and we don't think we're going to be ready at 8 weeks, then we extend it.
I think we're thinking the same thing and saying it in two different ways, Dan.
Okay, good. I love that. I love that. Okay. Yes, Jen.
Yeah, I also agree and won't say it in a different way. And I do wonder about the communication to families around that issue, that it's not like Jackie just posted in the chat that November 9th or whatever is the 8 weeks, that that families, I think it does help to know what the next step would be so that families can begin to prepare for, am I talking about sending my kid half days or am I talking about sending my kid 2 days a week? That I think there is something for families about knowing what's coming, and also communicating that November 9th is like, that there will continue to be a reassessment process. And to that end, I think Lauren's recommendation of some sort of criteria, we won't come to that conclusion tonight, but deciding together what that criteria is would be really helpful.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point, Jen, and I know after our Leverett meeting, I adjusted their hybrid model with their dates, copied it, sent it to the principal there, and she shared it out with families. And we have the caveat in the plan that says these dates may need to be altered due to the trajectory of the virus and other factors. But parents then had that framework of like, all right, it's 8 weeks, we're going to be home. And on November 9th, we're going to start phasing the little kids in, but knowing that if the virus spikes, that might not happen. But I do think it is important to communicate that as soon as we can to families so they can start to make plans.
And something I think, I hope I'm not wrong on this, Jen, but I'm trying to find it in the plan. I do believe we have in the alternating cohorts that when they do start to phase back in, it still is only morning in person and it's still afternoon remote for a period of time.
Correct, Jackie. Yep.
So it would be, we would phase it back in within the cohort model, but it would still only be 8:30 to, I don't know, 11:30.
We put 12, but you know, that was just a placeholder, 11:30, 12, right?
Yeah. And I would suggest we do that because one, we're going to have to build up stamina for kids to not be at their house. And two, it also gives us some more time before we worry about the eating situation and also mask tolerance. And so because of those reasons, I would want to, at least until the new year, continue on the half day in-person, afternoon remote.
Yeah, so the students would be receiving a full day of education, which is the requirement from DESE, but what we would be doing was balancing, once we phase them in school, in person, and then remote learning. And, you know, we do have some leeway in the guidance around structured learning time, that it's not students sitting in front of a screen for 6 or 3 hours, that there can be some independent work, there can be check-ins with teachers, there can be a variety of approaches to how we look at remote learning. So we're not having our kindergartners sit in front of, or our 6th graders sit in front of a screen for 6 hours. I have, you know, a strong belief in the talent of the Shutesbury staff that they would make it as engaging as possible.
Lauren.
I also, presuming the safety is in a good place. What I like about this model is that in the time that you're with students in the morning, you can set them up for their time in the afternoon. So it doesn't even have to necessarily involve a screen because you've done a lot of the laying the groundwork before they head home.
So school committee members, do you all feel you know enough about the plan? You understand it? Any questions or comments before we vote?
Questions?
Oh, Steve.
Questions, yeah. My video's not working.
No problem. And just so you know, on my screen, I can't see everybody who's on. So if I don't know you're here, it's because I can't see you. So go ahead, Steve.
All right, so my questions are IEP, special needs, breakfast and lunch, and preschool.
Okay.
How are those handled?
So we would do lunch probably in a similar way that we did it in the spring, which we had incredible feedback. I think a lot of you got that feedback as well. It was pretty remarkable, the lunch program that Chef Gail put together. So that would continue. And if we have to add a breakfast element to that, I'm sure that that can happen. And Gail is ready and willing to do anything to support us. And she has said that to me many times. She's willing to be very—
And we are meeting with the food service people tomorrow. So.
Yeah. What was the next one?
IEPs?
IEPs. Yeah, so I mean, the director of student support is not here to speak to this, but kids will receive their services remotely, and we will be talking as a staff if we feel like we could do some things outside, but that brings a whole other element of why some teachers are going to be in person and some teachers are not going to be in person, and is that equitable, and what does that mean? So there's a lot to that, but we did do remote support to students on IEPs in the spring and through the summer, and I see Renee did a lot of that work, as did many of our other teachers, and it's nothing will ever take the place of being in person, and I'm not going to pretend that it will. But they were very effective, and they were able to really make connections with kids and support kids emotionally and academically. And as far as preschool goes, and Jen, you can jump in here too if you want.
Yeah, so we've recommended in Union 28, I feel very uncomfortable asking 3-year-olds to come into the school and to social distance at 6 feet and wear masks. And so we've gone back and forth about this, and I'm an early childhood educator at heart. And so we've had lots of discussions, and we felt most comfortable offering a half-day preschool to our 4-year-olds. And I do believe that's what we're doing in Irving. And I don't know what the decision will be in New Salem. Wendell, Leverett has chosen not to have preschool for a year. However, regardless of what the preschool program looks like in any of our schools, we will offer services for special education for any of our 3- and 4-year-olds. Did we get all your questions, Stephen?
Yeah, you got them.
I just want to make sure I didn't leave anything out.
So if
But with the preschool, I had, I've been, as an early childhood educator, I've been following that closely, and I thought I read that it was 1 teacher for 5 kids, and you couldn't have any floaters. You could have 2 teachers, 10 kids, no floaters and no specialists in the classroom.
Yeah, I think that's EEC guidance, and our guidance from the commissioner has been, because our preschools live in a public school, that we follow the DESE guidance relative to students and spacing.
And also, I know that Grace is very committed to basically having an outdoor program, and utilizing the outdoors as much as possible, even in the winter, unless it's, like incredibly, horribly cold. But that is what she has said. She has also done amazing things virtually and has grown so incredibly in that area. She's like a model for the union in how to connect with early childhood students virtually.
So in Leverett, you said they've eliminated the preschool program?
For 1 year. They've suspended it for 1 year.
And the position, what happens to the person in that position?
That person retired.
Retired.
And we will use the paraprofessional in the school building. They're going to find a way to keep connecting with the preschool children, but because of the retirement and the pandemic, they just decided and voted to suspend it for 1 year.
Okay. So what was the recommendation, I'm sorry, for our preschool program? It would be mornings.
4-year-olds, right?
Half-day program for 4-year-olds, services for 3-year-olds on IEPs or 504s, and I just lost my train of thought.
I think you hit the high points.
Okay.
I think you hit the high points. Steve, do you have any other questions?
So my last piece is you've answered all my questions, but the IEPs and special needs, stretching those kids out to November 9th, it just seems like it's a lot for those parents and for those kids. Thank you.
Yeah, and Steve, I don't think we have a definitive answer, but I do know that Dr. Marsh is attending weekly sessions with Russell Johnson, the director, at the state level. And, you know, I think our schools are small enough that we can think about things on a case-by-case basis and think about what needs we can meet virtually. And if we can't, I think we would have team discussions about that.
Okay, Jen Malcolm Brown, you had your hand up?
I did. I think my question was, when you say half day for preschoolers, is that also remote or some combination, or would that be in person because they're?
Yeah, we do have them in the alternating cohort plan, phased in phase 2, I do believe. We're going to start, Jackie, am I correct in phasing the younger students in first? Or is it no, it's got
No.
complete phase in.
Yep.
Yeah. So it would be pre-K to 6, we'd be phasing in students.
Would be along the same timelines as all the
Yeah,
others.
they'd be on the same timeline. So they would be virtual the first 8 weeks.
Yep. Sorry, wrong cohort model.
Are there any other questions about the proposed plan that's recommended by both Jackie and Jennifer? Pretty clear? Okay. All in favor? And let's do a roll call vote, since I think this is important and I can't see Steve. So Hayes, aye.
Byander, aye.
Malcolm Brown, aye.
Thomas Fakeman, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Okay, that's all of us. So thank you all for the hard work, and I wish you a lot of luck, and we pray that this virus takes a more or better turn. So good luck, everybody. Are we ready to move on to the Morse Hill? Oh, I'm sorry, Jennifer.
Before we move on to Morse Hill, I need a tentative approval around dates. I did speak to the lawyer. We don't have to vote on it tonight, or we can vote, but we would have to re-vote it at the next meeting. Due to the 10 days the commissioner has allotted for training, and in the hopes that we can coordinate some virtual training for Union 28, we are looking to have a start date of August 28th. I know we approved another date pre-COVID, but what we're hoping is that we chose a date that split the difference between what Leverett and Shutesbury chose and what New Salem, Wendell, and Irving chose. And we'd like to start all of our Union 28 schools on August 28th for staff. They would have 12 days of training. And the students would start on September 16th, which is the last permissible day to start, according to the commissioner. And our last school day then would be June 17th. And so I just like a tentative approval or some discussion, and we can have a more formal vote at our next meeting.
Dates sound good to me.
So
Any other comments?
I move to approve the dates as presented by Jen.
I'll second.
Okay. So all in favor, roll call. Hayes, aye.
Byander, aye.
Malcolm Brown, aye.
Thomas Bateman, aye.
Sullivan, I.
Okay.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Jen.
much.
All right. We are now moving on to the Morse Hill discussion and vote. Would you like to bring us up to speed on that, Jennifer? You're muted.
Yes, and Lauren has been helping me with this. I have been somewhat consumed with reopening plans. So I want to thank Lauren for, I would say, partnering with me, but I think she did most of the legwork and the communication. And so we have had a proposal from Morse Hill School to open a school, and that does fall under the purview of the school committee. And you had in your packets, and I think Pam might have resent them today, some additional information around the proposal from the school. It is important to note that the guidance from the department relative to private schools looks for us to find that the school matches the public school in thoroughness and efficiency is one of the terms they use. They, of course, don't define thoroughness and deficiency, but what we do need to look at in the documents are who is the population to be served. We need to look at the physical plant. You know, is there a certificate of occupancy? Are there the appropriate inspections? Are they complying with any federal and state and health safety standards? And the curriculum, we need to look at math, science and technology, history, social science, English, foreign languages, if applicable, the arts and PE. What are they using for educational materials? And the qualifications of the staff and administration, and record keeping, financial support, learning time, etc. Lauren, did I hit the high points?
Yes, you did. I sent you everything that I could find that would be helpful in making this decision.
So I have a question. Did they have a fire inspection?
Kristen Rhodes is the person who I've been communicating with, and I believe she is here.
Yep, I'm here.
So if people have questions specifically for.
So, Dan, Walter is unaware, I was unaware until Monday that there's even there's a school happening there.
Right, so do we have information from a fire inspection?
So Morse Hill, right now, the buildings that Morse Hill is using are the buildings that are used for their outdoor education center, camps, and school programs. And they have had all their inspections within this year. They have their occupancy, their fire inspection. I spoke to the planning committee to see if that needed to change, and it doesn't. We spoke to the building inspector, sorry. And they are up to date within the year for all the buildings for schools and camp programs.
Okay, that's not the information that I got actually from the fire chief. It sounds like
right. That's the same that I heard too.
That Morse Hill has not been inspected.
That it was inspected as a summer camp. So for example, how many entrances and egresses does the yurt have in each of the pods?
So the only yurt that is there right now is still, I don't believe are using that at the camp yet and is still being worked on. So I know that right now they're installing windows. Corinne, you can jump in too, because I know you're on here and you're working for Morse Hill right now.
And I have Victoria
Oh,
right
hi,
here.
Victoria.
She's here.
Right.
And we did have a fire inspection in June because we have to have a fire inspection for our end of June inspection with the health department. And Walter came out and did that inspection.
Right. And so do you have fire alarms?
We have smoke detectors and fire extinguishers. All fire extinguishers were inspected by a different company in Palmer.
So my question, do you have fire alarms?
No, we don't have fire alarms. We have smoke detectors.
Right. And how many entrance and egress to each of the rooms of the pod do you have?
Okay, we have four of our buildings have 2 entrances, and our yurt, which we have not really put into use yet, we have 1, but we're working on putting in another one. We have the windows that we're going to put in sitting right there, ready to go.
Right, because I believe state law, you need at least 2.
Yeah, we have 2 in every building that we're using. Yep.
Right, although the yurt sounds like that's going to be used.
Yes,
for
but
students
but
when
we're
cold.
not we haven't done it yet. We still have upgrades to make to the yurt. We're putting in electricity. Right now we don't have electricity yet. It has a occupancy certificate or certificate of occupancy, but it doesn't, like I said, have in the heat or electricity dealt with yet, or the second egress.
Right. So I know our role as school committee members, we are in an approval role. So I did contact our agency, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, and spoke with the executive director, Glenn Kuchar. And a lot of what I think has been looked at Morse Hill has been related to what you are currently using it for, which is an outdoor recreation facility as opposed to a school. The standards of a school are very different. And as I think what Jennifer read, a lot of it has to model and be similar to a public school. So I think we need to have the inspections performed based on the fact that it's going to be a school and not a summer camp.
Except that at our school, it's going to be outdoors. So it's not a traditional school at all, not at all like a public school, because the classrooms will be outdoors and the indoor spaces will be used for inclement weather or cold weather or, you know, those kind of situations.
Right, so it sounds like the indoor space that you're going to use is the yurt, and that currently wouldn't comply with the current standards.
Until we get the second egress, yes.
Which will be done by the time school starts.
And is the yurt divided into different partitions?
Not presently.
Okay. So if you partitioned it, you would also need additional egresses.
If you split it into 2, I mean, how many egresses do you need?
2.
Right, so it would have that.
So if you divided it in half, you'd need 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, even if the
So again, I don't want to get into the details because I'm not a building inspector and I'm not a fire inspector. But having done research through the Massachusetts Association of School Committees and spoken with different people who have those roles, the inspections that have been done at Morse Hill were based on the current use of the facility. The inspections that need to be done for a school are much different.
And are there guidelines for outdoor schools?
I don't know. I don't know, but I know that if there is space, like for example, a use of a building, there are codes for that. There are also regulations from the building inspector regarding access to all facilities for students. Like if there was an injury, like would an emergency vehicle be able to get to a location where all the students are?
Absolutely. And it also has handicap access.
Okay. So those would be the inspections that I would like to see before I would feel comfortable to vote yes.
Yeah, we can take care of those.
And then there are the curriculum issues. So the curriculum that is equivalent to what is offered in our local school system, listing of materials, teacher qualifications, student-teacher ratio, will staff be evaluated? Will the principal review criminal offender record information or query?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm going through the list. Is there an adequate system of student records, attendance, health, discipline, progress reports? Are they kept securely and organized? Will you maintain and provide transcripts? And can you transfer transcripts of all students and former students to DESE if you cease operations? Are there adequate pupil personnel services for all students? And so those are some of the curricular questions.
So I sent in a document with answers to those. I'm not sure if that's in your packet or not, or if you need it resubmitted.
We do have the packet. I didn't know if.
Okay, yeah, those are all on there by section. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. So I guess, Lauren, I know you were the one that crafted this agenda. So was the vote to vote for the school or not?
Well,
what was the vote?
As we've been sort of going through this process, I wasn't really sure at first how to even like manage a private school opening in Shutesbury, because that's not something that has been on our radar before. So I sent you all the information that I had, and then this would be our opportunity. If we're ready to vote, then we would vote. If people have questions, then we need to ask those questions. You know, the committee members, I've been communicating and asking questions and gathering information, but all the committee members have not. So this is our opportunity for that. Also, I know Jackie, I asked Jackie to take a look at the curriculum, because one of the criteria is if it meets the thoroughness and efficiency of our curriculum, vague as those terms may be. So I did ask Jackie, and I don't know if Jackie, if you had anything you wanted to share about that.
Yeah, I mean, I know that curriculum to be for homeschool parents to use. That's how I know it. You know, I did take a look at it. It is not nearly as thorough as the Massachusetts state frameworks at all. There's actually like outdated language and usage in there, particularly around mathematics. But it, I suppose, would be sufficient. It would not be the caliber of a Massachusetts framework education, though, for sure.
So can I speak to that for a moment? So there's two parts to that school. There's a remote learning school for Oaks Meadow, and then on top of it, there's a homeschool program. So they have a private school sector and they have a homeschool sector. And so we're utilizing the private school sector curriculum, which they do align to Massachusetts standards for some of because their students are from all over Massachusetts. So sections of it can align to Massachusetts standards, which is the section we use. But that is the purpose of that curriculum, is to be our base curriculum. And then on top of it, doing nature-based, project-based learning curriculum as the core of our curriculum, which will be really individualized. But that's to maintain the standards of the Massachusetts standards and have the teachers build on top of it to use the nature-based curriculum and project-based learning and do deep delves into learning in these. Our groupings are 6 to 8 kids per grade. So, you know, it's going to be really individualized, but I wanted to maintain that, especially in our first year, our teachers had something to work off of and build off of as a base. So that's how we'd be utilizing that curriculum.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just looked at what was given to me to look at, and it did look way more of just like a scaffolding of ideas.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, I mean, I know that, you know, you're going to be a private school, nature-based. You're not trying to be Massachusetts public school, and I understand that. I'm just speaking, I was asked to look at the curriculum, and it's
100%. No, I just wanted to clarify because it's really hard when you're developing your own nature-based outdoor curriculum for a school to like say what that's going to look like, especially when you're trying to have it be based on the kids that are in the class. But I think that it's just so important for our teachers, especially the first year, to have a core that they can grow off of. And I really feel like the Oaks Meadow curriculum aligns with nature-based and project-based in a way that it can really build and gives teachers lots of room while holding that core level and standard that we would expect them to have. So I just wanted to explain a little more about it.
Thank you. I think the difficulty can be those vague words, matches in thoroughness and efficiency.
100%.
Because as Jackie said, we're comparing a public school curriculum, the frameworks, which we're obligated to provide to what you're providing. And I tried to get clarity on what does that exactly mean, and I didn't get a clear answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering all of our questions.
Absolutely.
So Corinne, I have a question for you. You asked a very good question. The question you asked are there guidelines for outdoor schools? Are you following any kind of a guideline for outdoor school, or are you familiar with anything like that? Or
Yeah, it was me that said that. I'm Victoria, but
oh, I'm sorry.
yes, we have
Just reading the name on here, and I didn't want to. I wanted to call you something.
Yeah.
We've looked at other outdoor schools, and like I was saying, that it is the majority of the time is spent outside. There's, you know, a very small amount of time spent inside, and the inside time is what you would consider more, you know, emergency weather kind of situations where it's cold and the kids need to go in to warm up, or it's raining or something like that. But
So are these schools in Massachusetts, or are they?
We've looked at schools in North Carolina, and there is another school that we've looked at in Vermont. So those, and they spend, you know, most of their time outside. And I mean, that's what we do at Morse Hill, is the only time we go inside, and we have winter and summer programs is, you know, when you have to go inside because it's raining too hard or it's too cold and you have to have a break to go in.
Even in the rain, we'll be outside under tarps and such. It's only in an incredible downpour that we would use the indoor space.
Or lightning and thunder and hail and whatever. So that's when we go inside. And I know it sounds remarkable and uncomfortable for many people, but it is something that people are not used to doing. And, you know, it's something that you can do and be comfortable and used to. So, and it's just way out there for a lot of people, but there are very successful models out there.
That's great. So are there any other questions from school committee members?
I have a question. If we were originally looking to vote tonight, but there are some outstanding questions, is it possible that we could do a vote to approve pending the inspections that you wanted to see?
I would not want to go that route. I think we need to find out what's really required, as I think, you know, even speaking with who the body that represents us, I mean, there were a lot of questions and I don't have those answers. So I do think that we need, if we are the body that has to approve, I think we all have to feel really confident that we have gone through the due diligence to make sure that the school that they're proposing, we would feel comfortable approving. And I think that those were just two examples of what I used tonight.
Could I
Yes.
ask a question? I'm sorry.
Sure.
When I reached out to try to find specifically what inspections I had to provide, and if the inspections that were at Morse Hill would be okay, the response I got is that it's up to the local school committee to decide what inspections they'd like to see to make that decision. I don't know if you got different information than that, which is why I reached out saying which inspections would you like to see initially. And so it would just be really helpful if either you give me the guidance of, no, that's not our job, you need to figure this out and get back to us, or if you do have beyond the fire inspection that you'd like done, specific inspections that you'd like us to do, that would be wonderful.
Sure, I think we can certainly give you maybe more information or more guidance in some of the information that we need. Although I would say that some of the information that is asked for, such as the fire inspection, from just my question to the fire chief, the fire inspection was done for the understanding of what the use of the facility was for. If the use of the facility is for something different, it's hard to say that you can use that same fire regulations. It's different for different scenarios. And I think there's sort of a number, and I think it's like 5 is a number of, even if you had a preschool program, once you reach 5 kids in a program, things change in terms of what you need and what the requirements are. So, so even though you might have been asked for some of this information, an occupancy permit for a summer program is very different than a school. So I think we just need to make sure that if you're applying for, or if we are in the role of approving a school, we need to know that the permits or the inspections are all based on a school program and not a summer program.
And do we have guidelines to which we can, know what we're supposed to do?
I will do my best to get that to you.
Dan, I can send you any information that I have. You probably have the same from MASC, but I can send that along to you.
Sure.
And I do know that they said that it's different than a public school, because if we're not taking any federal money, not having any students with special needs, the guidelines are very different than a public school guideline.
Right. And I think what you're doing is great. So I don't want you to think that I oppose this idea or I oppose the school, but I do feel that we're given this role and responsibility for a reason. And I want to make sure that we do our due diligence to make sure that that school will be the best school that it can be to serve the needs of students, whether they be from Shutesbury, who is really our responsibility, or from anywhere. So the fact that we have been sort of given this role and responsibility, we take it seriously. We want to work with you and wish you the best in your endeavor, but we do want to make sure that we dot the I's and cross the T's. Okay?
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest that we table the vote. Yes, Jen?
At which time do we revisit it? Because I understand that this is for the 2021 school year, is that correct?
Yes, that would be our ideal timeline, would be to open this fall.
So I think understanding that Dan, you're going to be looking into your information, and the folks at Morse Hill are going to be able to pull in from their information, and maybe, I just know that different entities work in silos from other entities, and so we may be really clear in our information, and the folks at Morse Hill may be really clear in theirs, and there's a translation issue. And I don't want to, I wouldn't want to see us table this indefinitely when people are trying to move this forward. So I don't know when we come back to this.
Right. So that is a difficult question to answer because a lot of this is going to be beyond our control. So for example, the fire inspector, I mean, Walter is easy. He's in town. I will tell you some places, some municipalities, like if you're in East Hampton, we had to have inspections. It took me about 3 months to have an inspector come in because of COVID. Now, Shutesbury is different than East Hampton. I mean, it's not that far from each other. Why it took them 3 months, I have no idea. In Shutesbury, hopefully we can do it quicker. But I mean, I guess if you could answer when they could do these inspections, I mean, we could probably set a date, but I don't know when they could do it.
We just need to know what we're required to do before before we set the date. So,
right. What I will try to do is communicate to everyone what it is that we're looking for, and I'll try to get to that out to you as soon as possible. And then I think it will be probably incumbent upon you to then secure the inspections. I don't think that is going to be something that we will do, but I'll try to get clarity on that as well.
Yeah, I've worked with Walter through the years, and he's, you know, really great and accessible, and so
Exactly.
I'm not worried about
I'm not worried in Shutesbury, but I also, just my own personal experience, I don't want to give a promise of something that I have absolutely no control over.
Right. We just need to, you know, like I said, we need to know what you're expecting of us.
Okay. That's fair. Certainly. Okay, Jen?
Along those lines of the time frame, I agree that it, like, once you get clarity, then it falls to Morse Hill to actually make that happen. But is it possible for us to talk as a group right now about, is the fire inspection the only hesitation or reservation that people have about the vote, or are there additional factors that would be helpful for the Morse Hill folks to, you know, enhance before they send back a proposal or update?
Well, again, I think that part also relates to the building inspector, because when I was asking the fire inspector questions about, you know, access to the property, he did have concerns, but said that that would be the purview of the building inspector. So again, because it's it's going to be sort of public or open to the public, you know, does it require a certain size fire engine to get up there? Now that is a question that has to go to a building inspector. Again, I don't know the answer to these questions, but I don't know. So I guess additional questions, yeah.
We have had that discussion, Walter and his assistant, which I can't remember his name, have had that discussion about getting a fire truck up there. And they both thought that they could with they were concerned about some of the trees rubbing against, the branches rubbing against the fire truck. But otherwise, they were confident that the fire truck could get up there.
And we've reached out to several of the different inspectors, and their thought was that it could be carried over. So now if it can't be, we will recontact them. But we do serve at the school. Less people will be there than you're even at 1 week of the camp. So in terms of the numbers and the safety, I think that's what maybe was happening, but I'm not sure.
And again, these were questions that sort of came back at me, and I don't have answers to them, and I'm not the professional. So I will see if I can get guidance and clarity and share that with everybody.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Are we ready to move on to the next item on the agenda? All right, reports, superintendent report. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was muted. You heard a lot from me tonight about the reopening plan, so I won't belabor or make my report any longer, but I am going to just ask for your advocacy on 2 issues I think are important during the pandemic and reopening. I did share with you my email to Senator Joe Comerford about homeschooling and giving us a 1-year hold harmless. I think in the midst of a global pandemic, parents are making decisions that they need to for the safety of their children and their families, and I don't think our schools should be penalized for that. And so I would ask you to reach out to Senator Comerford and perhaps Natalie Blaze to advocate for a 1-year hold harmless relative to homeschooling. And also there's going to be a public hearing relative to an act responding to COVID-19 emergency by instituting a moratorium of MCAS, and that's going to be Monday, August 10th at 5 p.m. And the Ed Committee is going to accept testimony via email. And Alice Peisch and Jason Lewis will be receiving that. So if you feel strongly about either one of those issues, hold harmless for homeschool or an MCAS moratorium, I urge you as school committee members to advocate for our schools.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to give, I'm done after this, a shout out to my amazingly awesome, wonderful, terrific, fantastic leadership team who's worked well beyond what they're expected to during regular years, who have been at my beck and call anytime I needed them, who have offered not only educational support, but moral support for each other. I couldn't be luckier to work with an amazing group of people. And so I just want everybody to hear that. They're awesome.
Also, I think I sent to you all the letter that members of the DLT sent about Jen. It's a mutual love fest.
Very nice.
Thank you. And that's my superintendent's report.
All right, Director of Finance and Operations.
Let me get unmuted. Here we go. So some good news. I'll start with tonight. The state at least has voted to level fund Chapter 70 to the 2020 level. So, you know, that to me is kind of exciting news because we were talking maybe 10 or 20% reduction. So I think it's good news for the town and good news for the school. Over the past few weeks, I've purchased personal protection equipment for all 4 of the schools. I did it jointly, and we're going to distribute that shortly. Gloves, masks, gowns, lots of stuff sitting over in my office over there to be distributed. I've been working with the custodians to make sure that the ventilation in the buildings is up to standards, original design standards, to make sure that when and if our children come back to school, we have proper ventilation occurring in our classrooms. I met with the custodians today, all 4 districts, to set up protocols for cleaning. If and when we come back to school, it's going to be a lot of work for them, cleaning and disinfecting regularly during the day, along with deep cleanings overnight and whenever the children aren't there. I've been working with Becky to she volunteered some town money for COVID expenses, so I'm working with her to have her pick up some of our costs for like the desks or perhaps some of our computers, and maybe there's an idea of putting in a water fill station in the school, and hopefully the town will pick up that tab with COVID money. So
yeah, nobody wants to be dealing with water bubblers and hands and mouths.
So they make nice electronic ones. You put a bottle underneath and it fills it. So that's something we're looking into. It's about a $3,500 proposition, but it's something that will last a long time and be useful for a long time. So, and I talked a little bit with Doug Slaughter down in Amherst Pelham. They have a new bus contractor this year, and we're beginning to talk a little bit about how we're going to transport students when we go back to school also, because they've given us guidelines of no more than one per seat, assigned seats, diagonal to each other. So there's a lot of stuff going on outside of just deciding how we're going to get back to school. So that's what I have going on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And good news that the town is being so supportive. I appreciate that.
Me too.
Principal's report.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk too much either, since you kind of know what I've been up to the past many weeks. But I do just want to give a shout out to Matt and Andy, our custodians. They have been working nonstop, and they have been assembling new desks and moving furniture out of rooms and putting 6 feet in between things and cleaning and getting our HVAC looked at and staging things and ordering things and looking at tents and researching tents and all sorts of things. And they've been so great. And to Debbie Lee as well, who has been working well beyond what she's supposed to be to set up and prepare for our one-to-one plan distribution going forward, and which we are so grateful to have these resources, but she has been putting in hours and hours of time. And to Jessica, because she is keeping us all organized, and also trying to answer to families who are really concerned and scared about what's going on. I also just noticed that it looks like I either have a really funny hat on or a halo. You pick.
It could be
I like
either,
it.
because you love funny hats.
Yeah. So really that's all I really need to say, because you know what I have been spending all of my time doing.
Thank you. And Steve.
Hi.
Hi.
We were supposed to meet last night and vote on what we're going to do for the fall, but that meeting was postponed till tomorrow night. And we've been meeting since April as 3 committees: the Union 26, which is Amherst and Pelham Elementary Schools, the Amherst School Committee, and the Region. And our big thing that we've been working on, which I sent everybody, I think last week, was the frameworks for support for students. And then we really wrestled with the support for teachers. And I think we got it worked out where we, just like in Shutesbury or Union 28, we are trying to support both students and staff. And so tomorrow night, I'll be voting to go remote, but just like here, my big concerns are IEPs, special needs, and food. So I believe that the ARPS district will continue to do the food distribution like it has now, but I haven't heard if the Baby Burke truck from UMass will be able to continue because they have students coming back, but I will find out. So thank you.
And Steve, I don't know if you were here for the reorganization, but will you be willing to continue on your role for Amherst Regional representative as well as capital planning?
Oh, that's how that works, isn't it? Yeah.
You were late. They
I
only
was
gave you
late,
chair too.
I was late, so I'll take them. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's the capital planning and the buildings committee and the region. Yeah.
And just so you know, if you didn't show up for the meeting at all, you would have ended up being chair by the end of the night too. Hello. All right. Next, Union 28. Nothing to report, right? Okay. CES. Well, as with all of you, lots of just plain old chaos. Reopening a building, they're reopening Heck Academy with a reduction of students because of social distancing needs, which brings in less revenue, which impacts the budget. we are applying for loan forgiveness for the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program. If that comes through, that will be wonderful. If it doesn't, we'll be looking at how to deal with a little over $1 million deficit. Part of that could be offset by some surplus that we had and set aside. So that could reduce it to about 800,000. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that the collaborative will be eligible for that. We're also moving forward with hiring an executive director to replace William Deal, who's retiring. So I am working with the Director of Human Resources. We are doing it in-house. The last executive director search cost just in the consultant that we used $80,000. So that was just a consultant. That didn't include any other expenses. So we have a budget of I don't know, like $1,200. It's like crazy. Anyhow, we're doing it in-house. We have a wonderful Director of Human Resources who has some experience in that. She's been terrific. Jennifer, I don't know if you've received any, surveys looking for input. The board of directors have. So we're moving forward, and as we discussed about Shutesbury Elementary School, we're coming up with a plan and being flexible. So that's about it there. Just chaos.
Yeah, and I just want to say how helpful Bill Deal has been. We have weekly meetings of the Hampshire and Franklin County superintendents, and he's organized that. And sometimes it's just maybe a little mini therapy session, but we've also shared information. So it's nice that he's organized us so we can hear what's going on around us.
Yeah, I think, it's a very challenging role, being the executive director. It's the largest collaborative in Massachusetts. It deals with incarcerated youth and students who are with special needs in institutional settings throughout the state of Massachusetts. And there's just a lot of moving parts. There was a thought to perhaps hold off on the hiring because it could help reduce some of the deficit. But it is an enormous position, and to put that onto an interim person is a lot. So we're going to continue to move forward, but we're going to be flexible. But I will pass that on. Thank you. All right. Policy review. Nothing, right? Awesome.
We're so efficient, we don't even have policies.
I know. Although you saw some of those from MASC, right, about masks and all that stuff. That'll probably be coming down the pike. All right. And then I think everything else we can all review and read on our own, just about upcoming meetings. As far as I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lauren.
I just wondered if I could ask a question.
Sure.
Jen, do you have any initial thoughts about how you'll proceed with the establishing criteria for how we decide after the initial 8 weeks? I know we just said that we were going to do that tonight, so you don't have a plan, but I'm wondering how you think you'll proceed with that.
So I am waiting to hear from the department about what they're calling trigger metrics, which would involve school closure, and I'm hoping it has a little more metrics than that. But I think that could definitely be on the list for the leadership team to look at, because although our openings are varying weeks, we are all going to have to decide how and when we return. And so that is definitely on our to-do list. But if anybody has feedback or ideas about those criteria, you could mail me and we could share that at our leadership team.
Thank you.
So that was a long no. I don't have any idea right tonight, but I'm working on it.
It's a good question and a good answer. All right. I don't see anything else on the agenda. Is there anything else that anyone would like to say or bring up before we adjourn?
Can I just add a little bit to what Dan, about the Morse Hill School that you were talking about earlier. Having been a licensed daycare provider and the after-school director in a school, that it is true that as soon as you go from a camp to a school setting or even a preschool setting, that the licensing changes, because even like with the after-school program where camps can use, you know, CITs that are 14 and 15, even an after-school program, because it's in a school, is not supposed to use anyone under the age of 18. So there are a lot of things that change when you put a school name on it. Thank you.
All right. So, seeing nothing else on the agenda, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much, and you have a nice evening. Stay healthy, everybody. Bye.